Rick Ross was the biggest cocaine dealer in West Coast history, maybe in U.S. history, tens of millions a day. He knew that he had people above him that were protecting him, but later he learned it was the CIA. And there's a fella in the movie that plays the part of Rick Ross, not the fake rapper that pretends he's Rick Ross. This is the real Rick Ross, who's on with us here in just a moment. And he's agreed sometime next month to spend a few days in Austin. We're going to fly him here and interview him for a film and also have him on air. So we're going to get Rick Ross in studio. I remember interviewing Rick Ross back when he was in the big house. That's incredible. It's admitted he was working for the CIA, but he spent a long time in prison, and he's here with us now, finally off probation, able to come see us. Before we go to Rick Ross, please don't forget that you got a lot of challenges out there to the immune system right now. MRSA, flesh-eating bacteria, all this other garbage. The best defense is a good immune system, not get it to begin with. Sunshine, non-GMO, purified water, lots of sleep, having a good time, having a good attitude. All these things and studies show are good for your overall health. Then if you have any deficiencies in the CoQ10 or the PPQ or all these key things that are in DNA Force, or if your gut isn't flushed out by things like oxy powder, or you have a deficiency in proper, true, nascent iodine, and we have the best source out there from a deep earth crystal source, then you're going to be screwed up. And you've heard the listeners. In fact, it's almost become an issue. They call in so much on other subjects and bring it up. These are things that we did deep research on that nobody else is putting out, that we bring you on InfoWarsLife.com. And I think Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine is just as important as having colloidal silver like Silver Bullet from InfoWarsLife.com and Super Male Vitality and Super Female Vitality. Key building blocks of the body. Things the elite are obsessed with, things they don't want you to know about. InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. And all your purchases of books, films, Molon Labe, Second Amendment T-shirts, you name it, help fund this true cutting-edge, hardcore media operation that transcends left-right. We're about truth. The government made narcotics illegal in the 30s when people got wise and got rid of alcohol prohibition. Alcohol prohibition for a decade in the 20s tripled the size of organized crime, corrupted the police, and tripled alcoholism. Look it up. Then you had drugstores that sold cocaine, opium, speed. Drug use was very low, but you had people that abused it. They made it all illegal so select groups could bring it in and charge 20, 30 times. That's why all the big drug dealers out there, interviewed by Kevin Booth and others that have aired on Showtime shows, say, we don't want drugs legalized. Well, Rick Ross does because he understands that it's a weapon system now. Who would blame somebody if the government's involved, make money themselves on it? But they use it to imprison people. They use it to control whole populations. And the reason the story of Gary Webb is so important is Rick Ross had the courage to tell the truth, even though he was thrown in prison longer for it and abused for it. And even though his family was threatened and he was threatened, Gary Webb, who I knew well, we were going to build a website together. He'd been a frequent guest. He had quit the San Jose Mercury News. He was writing another book proving government money laundering and the worldwide crime cartel. He told me a few months before, he goes, I'm not coming back on till my book comes out, but I got to hide my stuff. They keep breaking in my house. Rick Ross talked to him a month before he got his head blown off. He said, guys, we're breaking in. Okay? And then the media tried to demonize us when that came out. Look, we're telling the truth, folks. And the good news is, like a phoenix, Gary Webb has risen from the ashes, and one of the top films in the country is exposing it. And I got to tell you, I didn't think it'd be this accurate. It could have been a little more hardcore, but it got about as hardcore as I could imagine. Jeremy Renner produced it and stars in it. I'm such a big fan of him now. I liked him in Hurt Locker and in the Bourne movie. But, man, I tell you, if you knew Gary, if you followed the case, it freaked me out to see it because I'm somebody who's in the weird club of being death threatened myself. And so is Rick Ross. So, Rick, what was it like for you to see this film of your old friend Gary Webb, who was there at your trial and the rest of it? What was it like to go through this saga and 10 years after they killed him to be vindicated? What is it like for you, my friend?
Well, you know, just the whole thing when it came out that Gary was accurate and that the CIA admitted. I never thought in my wildest dreams that the CIA would have admitted that they sold drugs. So with that coming out, and then Gary had dreamed, because he said so many people, you know, don't read books, and he always wanted a movie to come out. And just to see that his dream came true after all these years, and that somebody had the courage, you know. I met Jeremy Renner in New York at one of the screenings, and, you know, I had to tell him, man, thanks for having the courage and you know, just the kahunas to stand up, man, when everybody might go against you.
That's right. They tried to manipulate the film. That came out, but 2 weeks before it was released, the CIA declassified that they indeed did target Webb to destroy him, embarrassing moles like the editor of the LA Times that lied for them. Incredible. What all did you talk about with Renner? And then give us your take when you saw the film.
Well, we talked about the nerves that it took. You know, it takes a lot of nerve, because basically what Jeremy is doing now is he's being like Gary Webb. You know, he's being almost like a whistleblower or an activist, you know, for right.
Oh, yeah, it's dangerous. Make no mistake.
So for him to make a move like that, you know, I mean, it could cost him his career. And you know, it's just, you know, it's just challenging, you know, because I know how people started to treat me, you know, when Gary had found all this information, and Gary connected me to the story. I didn't find this story. I knew absolutely nothing about the CIA, but when it all came out, everybody started accusing me of talking Gary into making all this stuff up, and I'm like, I didn't know none of this stuff. I didn't know who the Contras, you know, I didn't know who the Contras was. I didn't know who Nicaragua was. I never been to Nicaragua. I knew the guy I was getting my drugs from was from Nicaragua, but you know, I didn't know it was a country called Nicaragua. I was illiterate. How can I make up all these, you know? And Gary was like, well, how can Rick make up these documents? And it was just like, so I could just imagine what Jeremy went through, you know, and I just have to take his hat off, you know, take my hat off to him, and you know, and hope that his career continues to thrive. And you know, and people got to get behind people like that, man. We can't abandon them when they stick their neck out like this.
Or when you stuck your neck out. It's amazing. Now, CIA aircraft have crashed repeatedly in Mexico and other areas loaded with cocaine. That was in Reuters. They now admit our government grows the opium in Afghanistan and ships it in. That's even on Fox News. I mean, the vindication of Gary Webb and you and countless other whistleblowers who are exposing government narcotics trafficking. Why do you think the CIA has come out and admitted they bring in the narcotics and launder the money? Why do you think they came out and admitted they targeted Gary Webb and declassified that 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks before it came out? I mean, that's crazy. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, you know, Gary's information was so strong that it was going to be worse if they lied. You know, a lot of times it's better once you get caught in the cookie jar to just admit it. And then they knew. I guess they knew too. You know that. Because, you know, in my documentary that we've been doing, you know, we have Gary's last interview, and Gary says in his interview is that it's really crazy with our new media system is that the CIA has admitted that they sold drugs and nobody knows about it.
Incredible. And back then, though, it's a conspiracy theory, even though he had secret federal documents, even though he went to Nicaragua and talked to the kingpins. They tried to go back and say he was a liar. What was it like for you to see an actor playing you, who I think pulled it off pretty well, to see Renner pull off Webb so well? I almost got a sick feeling watching it, though, because it was like not a documentary, but it was more real than real. And then I felt threatened by it. I don't usually get concerned, but it made me think, man, they've been threatening to kill me. I know they've been threatening to come after you. Didn't you feel also almost like some kinship, like we were almost seeing a ghost watching this movie? Absolutely,
absolutely. Definitely, it felt really, really weird, and you know, I was in the theater with his wife and his kids, and you know, we had got to meet, and it was just a really, really eerie feeling. You know, it was almost like Gary's spirit was there and was thriving, and was like, you know, keep it going. You know, and you know, he gave me the courage to even go harder. You know, and I hope other news reporters. You know, the part that I like, you know, when he stood up and he said, you know, I started off writing 2 stories, one about a dog and one about a horse. And when I found out at the end that it wasn't what it was supposed to be, and that journalism is not what I thought it was, and I'm resigning. you know, and he basically, you know, took a shot at all these journalists that, you know, are out here and won't report the truth accurately.
Because they're not really journalists. They're masquerading as journalists.
Yeah, exactly.
They were never really in the arena like a journalist or like a top drug dealer. I mean, people can sit there and shake their finger at you and say, oh, listen to him. He was one of the biggest cocaine dealers ever. But then they don't even get mad at the CIA that was shipping it in to attack a community. It just shows the disconnect.
They don't. They just get mad at me. Oh, you shouldn't have been out of jail. You know, people tell me all the time. I'm like, I did 20 years in prison, and well, you shouldn't have never got out.
But then meanwhile, what about the CIA on record bringing it in?
They don't make that connection. They don't feel like that they should hold their government responsible or